Hello everybody, it is Nicole from iiKiui and welcome to another Fairy Friday. I haven't done one in a while, but I thought it was appropriate to do a Valentine's themed one. I do have a video coming out on February 13th, but unfortunately that's not Valentine's themed. So I thought it would be fun to cover it in a Fairy Friday. I also apologize for those of you who look forward to Fairy Fridays. I know before I was very ambitious and I wanted to do 2 Fairy Fridays and 2 Merry Mondays a month, but now I think the more reasonable approach is to do at least 1 Merry Monday or Fairy Friday a month. Especially since I'm doing elementals now and then I'm also bringing back beautiful disasters. They're definitely taking up a lot more time. But nonetheless, I hope you guys enjoy the video. So for the concept, I basically went on the idea of Cupid, but I didn't go a very traditional route in the sense that I didn't give her angel wings and I also didn't make her a boy. I think the very iconic image of Cupid is almost like a toddler in a white diaper and they have wings and the bow and arrow. So instead of angel wings, I wanted to make fairy wings, which I already planned on from the beginning. And I knew I wanted them to be transparent, so I had to keep in mind the placement and just where they would fall between all the, I guess, solid colors. For the pose, I struggled a little bit just because there was a little bit of foreshortening and just some perspective that I wasn't used to doing. This is also a pose I've never done before, especially with the heart hands. I remember back in maybe 7th grade I attempted to draw these heart hands from a picture I saw on the internet and I failed a lot, so I kind of gave up. But I decided to give it a go again, and this time I just used my own hands as reference, and I think it turned out pretty good. I did struggle a little bit with the pose in the sense that it felt like her head was detached from her body, so off camera, just for a little bit, I did a quick pose skeleton underneath just to figure it out, and then I moved some of her hair so it didn't look like she had a floating head. Originally, I was thinking of doing a pretty detailed outfit for her, but considering that I am very simplistic when it comes to outfits and designs, I decided to just continue with that. Over the course of the sketch, you'll see that her outfit changes quite a bit. In the beginning, I added ruffles for her skirt, and I also added a rope around her waist. I added 2 of them as almost like a belt, which was kind of Greek goddess inspired. However, the more I sketched and looked at it, I didn't really like it, so I changed it and I made the back of her dress look like the end of a heart, and then I added tiny hearts underneath, and then I made it just kind of like a flowy gown instead of a ruffly skirt. I think it adds a little bit of elegance, although I will say that on the bottom right side of that skirt where it bunches up was very challenging and I definitely need to study fabric more. Her sandals were inspired by gladiator sandals, and I wanted the back of the gladiator sandal to be hearts. It didn't exactly turn out the way that I wanted it to, but you'll see when I line it that I just kind of simplified it altogether. As for her hair, I wanted it to be very elegant and long. And then I realized after I completely finished the drawing that it looks very similar to the drawing that will be going up on the 13th. But nonetheless, I still like how it turned out. I gave her a half updo and I gave her a little ponytail at the beginning, but then it felt kind of off or like it didn't belong, so I got rid of it. But then it felt very empty, so I decided to do a bun that was the shape of a half heart. And the implication was that when you see it from the back, it would look like a full heart. But since it is a profile view, you can only see part of it. Now for the line art, I chose a thicker brush than I usually would. I chose a size 15 compared to what I usually use, which is a 7 or a 10. And this is just something that I've been experimenting with when it comes to the thick and thin lines and just varying it. I think for me personally, digitally is more challenging when it comes to varying line widths. Because it is so easy to make a very even line, it's harder for me to have control when I'm trying to vary the line width on a tablet compared to a pen and paper. So what I did instead was I just lined it as normal and I tried to add line width, but I didn't worry about it because afterwards I went in again and I just added it in manually. And usually I add these in where there's kind of edges or corners, so like the elbow or her cheek, or places that would just be elevated. I think that it just helps to bring some more dimension and interest in the drawing instead of having a very even line width. Not that I have anything against it because I am very capable of doing even line widths, which many of you have probably seen in previous videos. But I think having the different line widths definitely help to define it, give it some character, and just add some more interest to the drawing. So for the color scheme, I was originally thinking of doing all pink. And if you saw the thumbnail, you will know that that's exactly where I went. But in between that, I did think about doing a quote-unquote normal colored Cupid, where she would have fair skin and blonde hair and a white dress, but instead I decided to go for the pink skin, pink hair, pink everything. I think that keeping it pretty monochrome was really fun and helped elevate that Valentine's love Cupid idea. Although I will say I went more for the heart themed rather than Cupid entirely, but the whole idea is just Valentine's Day. So basically the color scheme I went for was a monochrome one that consisted of all pinks, and I went for a more red pink, very slight but a red pink, and then I stayed within that range. And then I also added white and then a burgundy pink, which was a range of the pinks that I was using. And even though that this one was a monochrome one, I definitely wanted to add contrast, even if it was similar in shade. Which makes me think that maybe I can do a monochrome mermaids digitally this time. But anyways, it was a little bit challenging to find a good contrast between them because there's only so many pinks you can use without it looking like a completely different shade and also not looking like it just didn't fit in. Especially because sometimes the pinks or the colors that I chose were very muted because they're on the gray side. It would make the whole image look very dull, and I wanted to keep it kind of vibrant, but also having enough contrast where you could see differences in the different shades and different parts of the image. So ultimately, I went for a gradation most of the way. Her hair is a gradation from a medium pink to a very dark pink red, and then her dress is a light pink to a medium pink, and her skin is a fairly light pink, just because it added enough contrast between everything, and that way you could see where everything was, and I thought that it just worked out at the end. For the shading, I kept it very simple, just because I had enough detail in the line work, in my opinion, that the shading was just something to highlight it, so I didn't really add a lot. And usually with these kind of drawings that I do, I don't really add a lot of shading anyways. And then for the background, I made a gray circle, a light gray circle, and I knew I wanted to do a shape in the background because if I just had her and then the white background, it wouldn't be contrast enough and it would feel very placed inside the image, if that makes sense. And recently I've been doing a lot of these shape backgrounds, which I've really been enjoying, so I decided to continue it and do a gray circle, which I thought matched very well and also helped contrast it because it wasn't white and it wasn't pink. And then I added in a bunch of hearts, and this is kind of similar to what I did for my Halloween one, where I just added a bunch of shapes and I lightened the transparency. Well, I guess I made it transparent and I lowered the opacity. And then for the heart that is in between her hands, I decided to separate that and make it fully white so it stood out. So that about wraps up this Fairy Friday. I hope you guys enjoy your Valentine's Day, whether you're in a relationship with somebody else, you enjoy it with your family, your friends, or by yourself. Remember that Valentine's Day is not just about couples, it's a celebration of love. So if you love yourself, take care of yourself, that's also celebrating Valentine's Day too. So I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Keep drawing, keep painting, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!